Good evening. I'd like to start the July 26th meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. My name is Patrick Raftery. I'm Vice Chairman of the Board. We are expecting the Chairman of the Board, Mr. Rodriguez, momentarily, but we will start the meeting now. I would like to begin by introducing the members of the Advisory Board, starting with the two newest members appointed by the Council to the Board. My far right is Angela. Kelly, next to me. Lisa Tuttle, a former member still with us. Jason Hood and Martin Armstrong. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes from the 26th of April meeting. Do any members have any changes or amendments they would like to make to those minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as published.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda is any citizen to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Is there any citizen from the public that would like to speak on an item that is not presently on the agenda? As there are none, we will move to the next item. Under new business items, 4.1, a request for a bleacher aluminum sign placement at Sid Lichten Park.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Albertson. I'm the president for the Three Score Softball Club. I have a couple of my colleagues here. I got Lake Scaranda. He's the vice president for the American League. Al Bartolo, who's passing out. He's the vice president for the National League. Listen, one of the reasons why we're here for today is actually two things. We have a, matter of fact, I'm going to grab this real quick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two items here. One is, just to let you all know, for those who aren't familiar, us Three Score Softball Club is we're a non-for-profit corporation. We specialize in playing softball and having fun, which we enjoy a lot. And we do work a lot with Colorado Scrivener right back here, and with Chris Koch as well. We do a lot of volunteering for the, we do, oh, I got to turn around this way. Oh, great. Okay.
It's just
Another
like
way.
the
There we go.
sign.
Like that? There we go. Great. And we do a lot of volunteering over at the Eddie Seymour Fields, and we enjoy the ability to be able to do that. The reason that we're here today is twofold. One is that we'd like to try to get a placement of two plaques. One of them is we started what's called it's called our Hall of Fame, where people are selected and evaluated, and then they get nominated to go into our Hall of Fame plaque. There is a pavilion that's over at the Eddie Seymour Fields. We are trying to look to maybe place our plaque inside that pavilion so when it's used, people can see that and enjoy it. Our group feels pretty strongly about getting on this plaque, so it's a big deal for them. The second one is that we had a member who was very active for about 25 years in our group, and he was a president and a vice president for the league at various times and held a lot of other capacities. His name was Al Corcoran. And this plaque here is one that the National League would like to put over at the Sid Lichten Fields. That would be, for those of you who are not familiar with the area, when you walk into the park, to your very right, there's a set of bleachers over there. And what they would like to do is be able to fasten this to the metal on the back of the bleachers to honor Al Corcoran in that process. So that's the first reason we're here. The second reason that I wanted to talk to you about today is the pieces that we passed out to you, just to give you a little bit of idea what Three Score is trying to do. We're changing ourselves into our business plans and how we want to approach both the city and the county. It's not just about playing softball. It's about a community outreach program that we're trying to do, and I'll talk about that in a second. But we're trying to build our membership, and we're trying to get our participants and our members more active in the operational aspect of what we do at Three Score, which is, believe it or not, there's 200 people. There's a fair amount of activity that goes into that. And the other one is we're working on a lot of key documentation. You wouldn't think in something like a 3-score operation that we'd have so much documentation, but when I walked into this job, I was like, oh my God, look at all this stuff. And so we're trying to get a process in place on how we can get what I would call a center of excellence about how we keep our documentation. For us, the key point about this whole thing is how we are working with the city of Clearwater. We look at working with you all as part of our partnership, and certainly with Carla, because we do a lot of that with Carla as well. We see today that you all are, what you call city-friendly towards seniors. That's what we are, city-friendly towards seniors. Our primary activity is promoting the health and well-being of our members as well, like physical activity, the mental alertness, all the things and attributes that softball brings to a senior person is what we're all about. And we try to promote those in the same vein that you all are trying to create senior programs for the rest of the city of Clearwater, and we feel like a very important part of that process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start a whole community outreach program where we're going to start a branding process. We're going to start putting together pamphlets. We've worked with Allie and your communications coordinator on putting some programs together for ads, like a poster. We hope to get it in your city kiosk and that as well. And what we're going to do is, when we launch this in about 3 weeks, we're going to give pamphlets to our groups and a poster, and we hope they will go out to at least 2 sites anywhere that are listed on that sheet that I gave you. Areas like the YMCA, retirement centers, sporting goods stores, 60-plus condos, anywhere that we think we can get a placement on there that has the visibility of seniors who may want to play softball. And so that's how we're going to try to promote ourselves. We kind of have a vision, a new vision for ourselves, and I hope you guys would join in on this, is that we want to have an aspirational vision that we want to be the best senior softball club on the west coast of Florida. And some people always ask me, what does success look like in that? And I would tell you, it's not only the idea of us bringing new members into our group, which we'd like to do. We'd like to increase the group as a total about by 100, to be honest with you. That way we have more teams to play, because right now we only play amongst 4 or 5 teams. We want more to play against, and we think we have plenty of room to be able to do that within the 2 complexes that we play at, both Sid Licton and the Eddie Seymour Fields. And so when we look at ourselves, if we could become the world-class, or at least on the West Coast, senior softball club, and we'd be the premier club on that group, and we're going to continue to work and fund that the best way we know how. And we're going to continue to try to build funds so we can promote ourselves, maybe even some billboards and some other avenues in the process. So if there's any questions at all, I just bring this to your attention and your information so that as you make a consideration about the 2 placements of these plaques, you would take into consideration what we talked about here today in that as well. Okay?
I did have a question for you.
Sure.
I think you mentioned when you started that you have presently about 100 members, is that correct?
About 200.
About 200 members. And that presently is enough for 4 to 5 teams?
So we have 2 leagues. We have the National League and the American League.
Right.
On the American League, we have about, I think right now it's about 84 or 85 there. Now during a normal season, when the Northerners come down, we have a little over 100 in that group, maybe about 112 to 115. And then we have about anywhere between 75 and 80 or so over in the National League, which Al currently runs over at the Sid Licton Fields.
Right.
And so we'd like to try to increase those.
And I think you're trying to increase it by another 200 people, is that what you
No,
said?
about another 100.
100.
We'd like to get it up to another 100.
Okay,
So about maybe 300 total.
okay, very good. Now that the chairman's arrived, I'd like to introduce him to Mr. Mark Rodriguez, who is the chairman.
Hi.
Hi, Mark. Jack
Hello.
Alverson.
Pleasure.
I'm the president for 3-Score. This is Al Bartolo and Alex Granda.
Welcome, gentlemen.
They're
Thank you.
both part of the group.
I like the 3-score wordplay. It's really nice. 20 years per score, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, Sir Alex, do you remember we did one time when there was a naming for a basketball court for a former employee, how we approach
Sure.
that? Because I want to make sure that naming any facility after someone, we make sure we do our due diligence, just to make sure everything is copacetic, we don't have any surprises later on. Not saying anything negative toward Mr. Corcoran, but just
Sure.
to make sure that way, because it's going to sit there in perpetuity, want to make sure it's appropriate.
Yes, and thank you for bringing it up, Chairman Rodriguez. The city actually passed a resolution back in 2009 for the naming of parks facilities, and I'll forward that resolution to the members of the board so they can read through it. But the kind of the mainstay on that is parks or facilities may be named in honor of an individual. However, this should occur only on rare occasions, and the individual should have given lengthy civic service to the city of Clearwater community, and that individual should be of local importance rather than of state or national prominence. Now, going back to, I think the plaque, I don't know that we'll have an issue with that, because that, we're not really naming anything after it. The plaque will just be presented up on the facility. So that, I think we can probably do that fairly quickly. Now, the naming of the bleachers would be something I think that would take a little bit more discussion on the part of the board, just because you'd actually be taking a piece of equipment or a piece of that facility and naming it after somebody. So that's where how in the process for that goes would be, after the board has their discussion, you make a recommendation, and then subsequently we'll work on a memo, send it to council, then council takes up that discussion. They're the final disposition on whether that goes through or not. But yeah, you're exactly right, because we did have a similar request, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, where it was to name a basketball court after a employee that was a longtime employee who I knew very well, did a wonderful job in the community, but ultimately I think we weren't able to do it just because of the precedence that it was going to set with an employee as well. So.
Right. I think in the end, I think we named a tournament
Correct.
in his honor.
Yes.
That way, at least the tournament itself continues with, in respect, so. Just making sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other,
Any questions from the board?
anyone, any citizens needing to be heard on this? No? All right, seeing none?
I had a question. Is
Sure.
Three Score, it's currently in Clearwater. Is it in any other cities on the West Coast?
No.
Oh,
Right now, we just play solely out of the city of Clearwater.
but you have aspirations to kind of grow it to other cities?
Yeah, within the Tri-County area, because we draw from the Tri-County area right now, all the way far up is probably, we have some people as far as Hudson that come down. We have some people in Tampa and in South Pinellas. And I doubt if we'd go across the Bayway Bridge or anything like that, or Skyway or anything like that, but we do want to try the Tri-County area, and at least the western side of Tampa. Sometimes it's just too far for people to travel, even though they love softball.
Logistics, I played baseball, and the same thing, we travel all the way out to Polk County, out to Sarasota and Bradenton, and
Yep.
it was a long haul for one day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking more for like multiple leagues. You have a league in Clearwater and maybe another league in Sarasota with teams, and then the winners of those teams play.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is we have probably maybe 10 states, including country of Canada, that come down in the winter. And we get probably about 24 players that come down north. They stay here for the winter months, and then they are part of our membership as well. I'd like to leave you just with this one thought here. You know, when I was talking earlier about what we think that our ultimate success looks like, I'll just give you an instance. We do a lot of commerce in the city of Clearwater, and people don't realize that. So think about this for a minute. You have 200 guys that play almost 4 or 5 days a week. When we're not playing ball, we're practicing. And when they leave those, they go out to eat almost every day. Almost every day. 200 people that are at us, and then they bring their wife, their special spouses. And I always look at success for us. It's not only about building our membership, but it's about when people see our T-shirt and they look at it, and the first thing they'll ask, what's a 3 score? Well, I'm hoping eventually they don't go, what's a 3 score? I hope they go, I know you guys, you're from 3 score. And that's the kind of impact we want to make into the city.
And how long do you think it'll be before you have the brochures prepared that you're going to be distributing?
I'm hoping, so we got most of it up and ready now. We're in our final copy print right now. We hope to go to print in about 35 days. And we're going to make, probably to start with, about 1,000 of the pamphlets and about 500 of the posters.
Right. And Jim, from Parks and Recreation, would there be any concerns with the advisory board proposing that the council consider placing this sign in the...
No, I think we would just look to see where we could have the placement at to make sure it's in a safe place where it's not protruding or anything like that. But, at the end of the day, I don't see that being an issue, going forward. And then I can also run it by our city attorney to see if that's even something that needs to go to the council, should you guys decide to go that route.
And I see contact information here, so we can follow up with you later on once you get the pamphlets. And
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I think you covered both item 4.1 and 4.2, I think.
Yeah, those are two,
Yeah.
one each. All right, moving on to 4.3, discussion of July Parks and Recreations Project Update Report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Rodriguez, and actually, Board Member Rafferty brought up a great point. We just sent out the August version, I think it was earlier today or yesterday, and the only thing that has changed from the August to the July version is the Countryside Sports Complex is noted as completed on there. So I'll just, quickly go through these active projects, then should anyone have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So the Baycare Ballpark, Carpenter Complex, funding and upgrades of the MLB facility, that is kind of tentatively on hold. So we don't really have anything new to report as far as negotiations with the Phillies or the county regarding that project as it moves forward. As we spoke about the Countryside Sports Complex, that has been completed. Courtney Campbell Trail Overpass, again, the work for that project is still in the design phase, and they're hoping to get the permit done by this October. Del Oro Park Trailhead, I would encourage any of you that have a chance to go out and take a look at what their staff's doing out at Del Oro Park. I believe we're, again, aiming for that November 2022 timeline, December. Unfortunately, we found out today we've been encountering a lot of supply chain issues. So the playground that we wanted to replace out there, the playground probably is not going to be in for another 3 months till after the park's completed, just because of it gets shipped from China, and we're suffering with the supply chain issues like everyone else out there. So that's coming along nice. Go out there, take a look at the site work, and the bathrooms coming along as well. Grant coordination, again, we're applying for a CDGB grant. It's a community development block grant for the Ross Norton Park to construct a fishing pier this fiscal year. So that's kind of going to be the tie-in over there. For those of you that remember Ross Norton at Lake Bellevue, there used to be a pier there many years ago. It kind of fell into disrepair, and it was knocked down back in the day when I was the supervisor out there. That was one of the things we used to love to do with the kids, is take them out fishing on the pier. So we're really excited to get that back in there. I think the kids are going to love it. And we continue to research for grants. Cooper's Point projects, again, just development with that master plan. They're still in permitting with SwiftMud. However we can get grant funding through our stormwater and our engineering department to see how we can get that completed, we're going to work with them. But as of now, there's really no significant update on that. The Bird Island, again, the grant was, we weren't given enough money for that project, so determining, what money we have and how we're going to go forward with the design on that.
I have a question on the Bird Island
Sure.
one. The original request, I believe, was for a coastal resilience grant, and that was the one that was not given to us. And you're seeing if there's enough money in the budget for design. Was the original grant request just for the design work or design and construction?
I will check on that. That's a very good question.
Because it just struck me as if we're just going to the design, then we still have to worry about the construction.
No, you're absolutely right. That's a great question.
Okay.
Can I ask where Bird Island is? Because I'm not familiar with that.
I will, you know what, it's out in, let me see if I can pull up a map here to describe it better. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information, because the last time okay, so Bird Island is the very top of Clearwater Beach before you get to Caladesi State Park. So it's kind of that very tip over there. It's kind of almost the last piece that's on Clearwater Beach over there.
Is that considered a park, or is it just?
Not really, it's just part of the beach, but I think what they were looking to do is to redesign the breakwater in there to increase the flow, because they're getting a lot of, I think from an environmental standpoint, a lot of sediment and things are getting kind of trapped in that area over there. And I believe that it used to exist before, but over time this has been, Mother Nature's taken it back. So they're looking to redo that.
I was just curious about, do you know why we weren't given the grant?
I can find out from our engineering department on, what the kind of the response they give us on why we didn't get that grant. And a lot of times when we're dealing with, if this is a grant on the state level, is they will the legislature will have their funding set aside, and it'll look like, yeah, we're gonna get this. And then it goes to the governor's desk and it gets vetoed. And so then the entire amount gets taken out of there, or he may selectively veto, but I will look up for that.
Line item. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll move on. 4.4, additional
No,
staff.
I think,
He's not done with
I don't think he's done with the.
Yeah, I've got more on here unless you
Oh,
got.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
You want me to go through them
Sure.
line by line? Okay, Baycare
Just finish.
Ballpark, CIP repairs, that's just, we've done a lot of the structural waterproofing, now we're replacing air conditioning units. And initially, a lot of this was supposed to be done as part of the renovation project to the ballpark, but since that's been pushed several years down the road, we've had to, these HVACs that are being replaced are actually original to the project, so they're 20 years old, so they're at the end of their useful life. Sailing Center dock replacement, we're looking over out on the Clearwater. Sailing Center replaced that existing floating docks. So the contractor, again, is in the final stages of the designs on that docks, and it's very difficult because we have to go through permitting with FWC and FDEP because we're putting a dock out there. So it was done kind of before, I think we did it, we didn't get a permit correctly before. So now the footprint of what we're looking to replace is much larger than what was allotted, so now we've got to go back and redo that. So we're trying to get on there. Clearwater Beach Rec Center and Magnolia Street dock repairs. So the rec center, we do have the deck installed out there. The rails are being completed by the end of June, so we're hoping the contractor, I believe, is going to give us a green light hopefully by the end of this month, and then we'll be able to get things moving back there. I don't know if the board remembers, we actually had to do some adjustments with the rentals and things that we were doing out at Clearwater Beach, because that's a huge draw for people that want to rent the facility for their wedding, is they'd like to have the deck outside, and we've unfortunately haven't been able to do that, so we've had to kind of massage some things here and there, but we're looking forward to having that done. Long Center Playground is complete. They reconstructed a seat wall and then repaired equipment on the existing playground. What we got here? Okay. And I believe that's it as far as I see on my notes here. Yes.
Any questions or comments? Moving on then. 4.4, additional staff required for Parks and Recreation to support Coachman Park Imagine Clearwater 2023.
Yeah, I had this item added because originally I had heard that 10 additional full-time employees were going to be requested to be added to the Parks and Recreation Department, specifically to support Coachman Park Imagine Clearwater. And then since then, we've had discussions with the work session on the budget, as well as the budget's going to come up for some discussions to council and some special hearings. So really, I guess my question is if you could just comment briefly on the adds to the Park and Recreation Department specifically for Imagine Clearwater, or including what might be proposed in the budget, because it's quite a nice growth for us.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to address that. Initially, when we went forward with the project, our thought was we were just going to be handling the maintenance on the maintenance side of the park. The idea was, and we'll get into it with the next discussion item, was that, maybe a conservancy would be able to program the park. We're in negotiations now with Ruth Eckerd Hall to be the operator of the venue side. So that's about a third of the size of the park. So the other 2/3, we were hoping to have, a partner maybe program that park. But as we've kind of went through the process with the conservancy and meeting with the group, we've kind of realized that we put the cart before the horse. So really, a conservancy usually starts before the park gets moving. So any group that, from a volunteer standpoint, is not going to have the capacity to program this. So the manager was very concerned that we wanted to be successful. It's a catalyst for growth in the community. So part of that is he added 4.5 new FTEs for programming of the park. So we're going to have someone that's kind of going to be responsible for whether it's small concerts that are on the park side, markets, again, different, whether it be a car show, just different things that we can bring down there. And then that person, that staff, they're going to actually activate the entire downtown. So not only that park, Station Square, and the Mercado, which is coming up on, which will be up on Cleveland Street. And that will lead into the other growth for the maintenance positions, because now we're at 14.3, we were initially at 10. Once we looked at the amount of landscape and hardscape that was being added in Cleveland Street Phase 3, we knew we needed to add more staff. I believe we counted, there was like another 1,500 to 2,000 irrigation heads that were going to be added. So, part of that staff's not only maintenance, it's our people that go out and our irrigation techs. So again, we added that. So the idea is we're going to have on the maintenance side, a downtown core team that's going to be responsible for maintenance from Coachman Park all the way up Cleveland Street, and then incorporating Crest Lake Park as well. So that's going to be one team in charge of everything there. So that's kind of where you saw that creep and that growth from.
Right.
Was just as we moved further along in the process, there were things that we didn't, calculate properly. And then as we've went through the discussions with, the various consultants that we've had for the Conservancy, it's just, we know that at this point right now, we would not be successful programming on the park side if we had to rely on a volunteer group to do it.
Right.
I have a question.
Sure.
You do have that long list of suggestions from them.
Yes.
Will they be implementing some of those ideas?
Tomorrow's actually going to be our last meeting on that. I think I sent everybody an email out. And kind of what I'd like to do is, our meetings unfortunately are infrequent. So I was talking to the consultant about maybe, getting with everyone here and seeing what our schedules look like and have another meeting before our next October meeting. So the consultant can kind of present to you the different frameworks that are looking to take place. Because ideally, what we want to do is we want to approach council and be like, okay, listen, these are kind of some community discussions they've had. These are things that we think can be implemented. What are you comfortable implementing? And then what do you see as the composition, the makeup, and the role of that committee as we move forward?
Any other comments or questions from the board? Any citizens wanting to be heard on the subject? Okay, we'll move on to the next one, 4.5, discuss mission, members, and role of the Coachman Park Conservancy Working Group.
Right, I had added this one because I heard about the group from someone that just sent me a note about it. I really didn't know what it was about or anything, then I got additional information. So I was just more interested in getting myself and the board educated as to what this group was about. However, Mr. Haleo sent out on Friday the 22nd an outstanding summary of what the Conservancy group is about, their role, their mission, the composition of the group. I think you included a couple of notes from the first couple of meetings and so forth. So from my standpoint, just from the top cover letter that you sent out with this and your recent explanation, now I have a complete understanding of this group coming together. It's a rather large group if you look at the membership.
Yeah.
And then coming together with ideas and thoughts that they might propose to council.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, ultimately, it will be the council that decides what will be done, what is the mission of this group, what is the composition of the members of this group, and so forth. So for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, it's a work in progress. However, they are doing some good work, but your memo summarized what I was looking for, quite frankly. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read it or not, but it was excellent. So I have no further questions.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that there's some miscommunication out in the public on what the actual role of the, it's a very informal group. It was kind of at the beginning, and unfortunately, we had a transition where Mr. Rector stepped off the board because he was actually on there as the representative from the Parks and Rec Board.
Right.
And then transition as him transitioning to a different board responsibility. So we didn't have, I think at the last one we had, so tomorrow's basically our last meeting that we have with this. And then, like I said, we'll bring forward those things to you kind of that were discussed because we want your input as well. There may be things that we bring forward that you as a board think, well, no, maybe you need to look to have this in there. But I think the main thing, and I can kind of tell you, just give you the 30,000-foot view of what we've discussed, is I think right now we're pretty confident, just even the people that have been on this kind of fact-finding mission, that there's not enough momentum in the community right now for a conservancy. Everyone thinks of like the Central Park Conservancy that just operates everything. We know right now that that's really not probably what's going to work. So we've looked at some different models, and I'll share with you the information that I get tomorrow from tomorrow's meeting and the presentation. And so I think right now we're looking at more of like maybe a friends group, something they do over at Tampa, over at the waterfront in Curtis Hickson Park, where it's a group that works in concert with staff, almost kind of giving them ideas. So that could be one of the suggestions. But again, we're going to bring that forward to you guys, so you'll have a say in what you think the composition and the role should be as well.
Do you have any idea of the time frame for the ideas from the group to be presented to the council, for the council to consider what the role is, what the staffing, what the membership will be, et cetera, et cetera?
I would hope within the next 2 or 3 months, because my hope is that after the meeting tomorrow, we can kind of collate that information. I can share everything with the board here, and then maybe we can get together and have another, kind of a special meeting where we could have a representative from that group, as well as our consultant, present to you kind of the different ideas that they're looking at, and then take your feedback as well.
Right. And I think the meeting tomorrow is open to the public, is that
Yes,
correct?
so whoever would like to attend, please feel free, and I'd be more than happy to share that information with you when I receive it as well. And it's going to be on the second floor boardroom tomorrow at 9.
Right.
Library doesn't open till 10, but I'll be outside with my key letting people in.
Excuse me, if you have more than one board member attending, you won't be able to speak at it?
Right.
I will be there, though.
Okay, you're going to be there, represent the board,
I will
great.
be there in the morning, and, yeah.
Sunshine,
Okay.
thank you. We'll whip out.
All right, anyone,
That's wild.
any member wishing to, any questions or comments on this part? Okay. Move on to old business. We do not have any that I see. Director's report?
I had one question
Oh,
on the
yes.
old business. At the last, I was just going back looking at the notes from our April 26th meeting, and you did raise a question about the Clearwater Lawn Bowling Club requesting financial assistance from the city, that we might want to consider doing some follow-up on that.
Right, there was them, that was the lawn bowling, also the amateur track, I believe. There's an organization came by, just to kind of follow up and see where we left off, see where they are, just to see if there's
Right.
anything they need more from us. I don't want them to show up and then they disappear in the ether.
Right.
We want to make sure that we follow up and then see if things are working okay. And then, of course, now the senior softball, so.
So I thought from that, just from that item alone, is there any?
Yeah, actually, I
give
do
to us
have
about
some
that?
information regarding the lawn bowls.
Okay,
So we currently give them a subsidy of $2,500 a year. And then we also pay for their stormwater fees, because I don't know if you've been out to that property out there. It's a
Yeah.
large asphalt parking lot, and they're responsible for the stormwater fees. And that comes to roughly around $4,500 a year. So a total investment of around $7,000, which is given to Lawn Bowls Club every year to help them with their expenses.
Are there other organizations that we also do?
Yeah,
financial support?
like shuffleboard, that's out there. So lawnmowers and shuffleboard are the two. And really, we used to actually staff that and run that out of there, but back in 2008, 2009, we peeled off on that. So we looked for partners to help us run those things. But unfortunately, as we've moved on with that, there's, I think a lot of their demographic, as it's aged out, they're having issues with membership,
Yeah.
so, and they're membership-driven organizations, both of them. So they suffer with that. We try to help them as much as we can, but again, it's something where there's only so much that can go around. And so actually, the relieving that stormwater fee was something we had to go to council with a couple times to get that done, because council's very hesitant to do that.
I know definitely shuffleboard's picking up because a lot of younger millennials like to do alternative
Yeah.
sports, and they're like, okay, there's something there, and it's a nice time to hang out and during the day.
We're trying to direct them as that, because one of the things that St. Pete's has been very successful with is their shuffleboard club down there. The caveat is they're allowed to have alcohol. So our park rules, you can't serve alcohol in our parks without having it being a special event and getting certain type of permitting.
Yep.
So, we have a new attorney, so maybe there's some flexibility in that, so we're looking at that, because that is something that, like you said,
Yeah,
it's
St. Pete, definitely.
yeah, they crush it over there.
They get a crowd. Any other comments or questions? The director's report?
Other than those, that was actually one of the items I had on my director's report, so that's all I have for now. Again, welcome to the two new board members, to Angela and Kelly. Looking forward to having you guys here, and wanted to also mention too that I do look forward to setting up another meeting so we can talk about the proposed kind of working group that, for the Conservancy going forward, and get some ideas from the board so we can present that to the council as well.
Excellent, okay. All right, last one more time, any board members needing to be heard? Any comments or questions? Yes.
Yes, I don't know if you guys have people coming up to you with ideas that can't be here. I'm sure it happens. So I recently had two people come up to me with ideas that I thought were pretty good. But one suggested maybe community events at various parks because not everybody knows where all the parks are. There's a whole bunch of them, but maybe disc golf at Northeast Coachman Park or a scavenger hunt at one of the newly renovated parks and walking tours through Moccasin Lake way in the back where nobody really knows what's, you know where the playground is, you know where the, but way in the back there's a lake. I wasn't aware of that, but so I don't know, maybe like community events, you have Morningside rec events like for almost every holiday. I've been to a bunch of them, and I think that's great, but so many parks that people aren't aware of.
And we're really trying to focus more on community-wide events. The issue for us is that as far as like if it's a park that does not have a facility at it, we don't really have anyone that kind of mans it and is responsible for it, and we don't have a person that kind of oversees our natural lands. But it's funny that you mentioned Morningside, because I actually went out there and spoke with Dave Wilson, the supervisor, yesterday, and talking to Dave about what a great job he's done with the community events. So I've challenged our other recreation centers staff and those supervisors to come up with similar ideas to what Dave has. But, I think the disc golf is something that we could definitely work with. We have a group that's very active out there. We could definitely work with them. And then also the Moccasin Lake, I think it's kind of time that we re-engaged on a lot of those things. Unfortunately, we kind of peeled back a lot of stuff because of COVID.
Sure.
And so now we're ramping that back up, but those are wonderful suggestions.
Okay. The other suggestion I heard was like a Grauman's Chinese theater. We have a lot of celebrities coming through Ruth Eckerd Hall, and they thought, well, why don't we have like a handprint and cement from all these celebrities, and it would be a huge draw for tourists. And that particular person suggested maybe Station Square Park, and I thought, we have a lot of sidewalks going in on the Coachman Park. Maybe that's something
No,
to consider.
I think that's probably kind of a neat niche thing that we could talk to the people at Coachman Park about. And maybe it's the people, kind of something that we're tracking now, maybe the people that are coming to play there, they do that when they're there, and then you kind of create a walk of fame almost.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or
And
possibly like famous celebrities
Yeah,
and bold-faced names
we
that
have
live
all
here
these people.
or have lived here. You see, hey, look at the list of people who have called this home, just like me. And they're right down the street, because Clearwater's a small, a specifically sized space, so.
the last idea is from me. Before COVID, you had a lot of videos through the parks, the city, and you did like a walkthrough video of Glen Oaks. It wasn't the most exciting video, but it was a video. So I just wondered if there was any possibility of doing video tours for maybe people that are disabled and they can't get out and see these parks. Could communications work with the Parks Department?
Yeah, we can engage with our public communications staff. I think one of the things we did a really good job out when we were at Crest Lake Park, they did a kind of a drone flyover.
Yeah.
And with narration, and eventually I'd like to be able to do that with all of our parks and facilities to kind of give you a different perspective and let people, because a picture only does so much, versus a kind of a whole 3D interactive thing is much better.
We did have a while back, a citizen came up and she has a blog. I'm trying to remember the name of the blog, and she actually went to every single park.
That's
Oh,
it.
there you go. I wanted to, there you go. See, I remember. I was just like, hey, that's exactly what kind of.
Yes.
And I was thinking of doing the videos myself, but that's a lot.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
You
That's
know?
something that we could, hopefully if we get some interns, that'd be a great project for an intern.
Yeah.
Interns of people volunteering to get, some recognition. I think we should involve private businesses and private citizens to chip into the community that they want to represent. So, I think it's a good idea. Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions, or?
I did want to raise something so that everybody's aware of it. I attended the budget work session on July 18th for the new budgets that are being proposed by the city manager. And it was quite detailed and so forth, but I'll just get to the part that interested me the most, which is outside of the Clearwater Police Department, the budget for Parks and Recreation is the largest of the budgets for the city. number one. Number two, as Jim has mentioned, it's being proposed to add 18 full-time employees to the Parks and Recreation for a variety of issues, amongst other things. So what I want to encourage the board members to consider is there's going to be a budget work session on the 4th of August at 3 p.m. at the City Council chambers on the first floor. And there's going to be public hearings on this budget at the council meeting September 15th at 6 p.m. and September 29th at 6 p.m. And I think not only as members of the advisory board, but hopefully appreciating how much work is done by Parks and Recreation and how much a new challenge they're going to be faced with this new Imagine Clearwater and so forth, it would be helpful, I think, if some of the members could in fact attend these sessions to educate themselves and most importantly speak to the city council about the necessity of adopting the budget as being proposed by the city manager. I mean, he's got his wish list of what he'd like to have, and there's a couple of members of council that are a little bit reluctant to spend the money right now, but that's okay, they're entitled to their opinion. But in the long run, with respect to Parks and Recreation, I think it's a great proposal for Parks and Recreation as well as a number of other different departments, and I think it would be helpful if we could educate ourselves specifically on what's being proposed for Parks and Recreation and then speak out on behalf of it in front of City Council. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I did have one question with respect to that new budget. He's creating a Department of Public Works, and is it correct that now, outside of repair of sidewalks within the recreation facilities, that repair work will go to that Department of Public?
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually, with our size, we're losing 22 positions out of our department. That is basically our urban forestry, our streets and sidewalks, and our contract management is headed to the new Public Works Department.
Right.
So, and Board Member Rafferty is correct, any sidewalks that are not within a park are going to be handled by the new Public Works Department. Then actually, with the exception of this median down here on Cleveland Street, all the medians and maintenance in the right-of-way, landscape maintenance in the right-of-way is going to be taken care of by this department as well. So we're hoping that it's going to eliminate some redundancies and there'll be a lot more, I don't know how many are aware now. I know Board Member Rafferty is well aware of it because him and I have had several conversations on it, is that the engineering has the contract to replace the sidewalks, but Parks and Rec replaces the piecemeal if it's 2 or 3 panels. So there's a lot of redundancy that happens, and there'll be a lot of times where our guys will spend a week in a neighborhood, and then a month later, the contractor comes in that neighborhood and takes care of the rest. And it's well, if we knew that was happening, then we would have touched it. We would have went to other areas where the contractor couldn't be. So we're really hoping that this efficiency will allow us to, address the issues that we've seen going through the city.
And that's one of the nice things about making that transition is now you can be responsible solely for the sidewalks within Parks and Recreation facilities, which is where children play and people care about. And another note I'd like to add from the budget review is that the city manager proposed adding 62.8 people to the city employment full-time. However, he was able to reduce that by transitioning people, like Mr. Helios mentioned. He moved 29 people around to fill those positions to where, in fact, he's now going to only add about 33 people. So the city and the departments are making a good effort to move people around to where they can fill positions as opposed to hiring new people.
You said the meetings will be, the budget work sessions, August 4th, you said?
I'd made a note about August the 4th at 3 p.m.
Correct, yes, it'll be in this room.
It's in this room here, right?
And then the 15th at 6 and 9.
Yeah, and that's the actual city council meetings where the public will be allowed to speak, and there should be a great turnout of the public speaking on the budget, quite frankly, because it impacts our taxes as well.
All right. Any other board members to be heard or questions?
I do want to provide a suggestion. In the Greenwood community, there's currently not any exercise equipment in parks. I know one location is right behind the old Hope pool.
Sure.
And providing something where, there's pull-up bars, things like that, where the community can come out and exercise and get them involved, especially with health being a major, concern in that community. So being able to have to provide something where they can be able to exercise at, because there's nothing.
No, that would be great. And I think what would be helpful for us, and we can do some community outreach, is to see where they would like it at. You know, where,
Right.
would it be good in Cherry Harris, or would it be better utilized if it was somewhere around the recreation center, you know? So, but
Yeah.
we'll definitely, I think that's a great point, and there's a lot of, like how I talked about, Ross Norton has the community developing block grant funding from our economic development and housing. I'm sure there would be some funds available for that, because actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. We had, the city manager had asked me to look in, to put a outdoor basketball court out at North Greenwood Rec Center. And I said, yeah, you know, we could look at that, but I think that maybe it'd be, instead of doing that, maybe we look at, or we do that in conjunction with having that outdoor fitness equipment, because I think that could be a
That would
better use.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a basketball court would be huge for the kids in the community.
Yeah, exactly, just for them to be able to go out there and play. And one of the areas we're looking at is see if we could put it behind the rec center, but we've got to be careful because it's very close to the homes over there. So
Right.
if we have lights, and then if it's noise from the court, you know, it's no good deed goes unpunished. So we're going to vet that out, but that's one of the things we're looking to do.
And to begin a process like that, to recommend a fitness center or add a basketball court, well, how would we do that?
We can, you know, that's something that you as chair can just draft a memo, and then I
Okay.
can go ahead and forward that on to the city council. But that's something that we can, I believe we might even have that in the plan. So let me look to see where we're at with that, and then, you know, if it's something that we don't have it planned, where we can't expedite it, then, you know, it would be, I think, appropriate for the board to kind of make a suggestion to the council that this is something we would like to look into. But let me go ahead and see where we're at with that, because we may have something in the plans for that, and, you know, that could be something that can be expedited.
Okay, yeah, because a lot of the recommendations or suggestions people give, or the citizens give, it'd be nice to either have the right verbiage or the right procedure,
Sure.
how to begin that, and then go through that process, so. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it. All right, any other board members wishing to be heard, or any questions? All right, no, we'll move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? All right. This is-
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned, thank you. Okay, thank you, yep.